The movie begins with Sarah, a young businesswoman, preparing to go on a cruise with her mother Julia. Sarah, who's a businesswoman, talks to her boss Patricia on the phone about the app idea she recently pitched to their clients. Patricia informs her that the clients are hesitant to work with her, as they prefer apps that can generate a lot of money. Hearing this, Sarah just sighs and hangs up the call. At that moment, Julia encourages Sarah to relax and enjoy their vacation, and Sarah reluctantly agrees. They board the cruise, where they are warmly welcomed by Teddy, the cheerful cruise director, who asks them if they have any questions. Sarah replies that they don't and mentions they are part of the ship's theater crew. Teddy nods upon hearing this, wishing them luck and noting the passengers' excitement for their performance. She then escorts them to their rooms. While Julia tries to unwind, Sarah remains engrossed in her work, frustrating her mother. Julia heads to the bar to blow off steam and meets Betty, an enthusiastic passenger who recognizes her as part of an upcoming Broadway revival. Julia is delighted by Betty's support and enjoys their conversation. Meanwhile, Sarah, still focused on work, struggles to send a critical pitch and is approached by Jack, a carefree writer. He encourages her to relax, but Sarah brushes off his advice. When the passengers explore the city, Sarah remains preoccupied, still trying to contact her client. Jack notices her frustration and suggests visiting a nearby cafe with Wi-Fi. At the cafe, Sarah shares that she's on the cruise because her mother is part of the Broadway show. Jack reveals he planned the European trip as a birthday surprise for his father, Andre, a history enthusiast. Their conversation deepens as they discover they live close to one another and that both their parents are single, having lost their partners. After considering the situation, Jack suggests they try setting their parents up. He mentions that his father, Andre, loves music, making him a potentially perfect match for Julia after her husband's passing. Enthusiastic about the idea, Sarah quickly agrees, and the two start thinking of ways to introduce their parents to one another. That night, Jack and Sarah arrange for the four of them to sit together for the cruise dinner. Initially, Andre and Julia struggle to connect, clashing over their interests. At one point, Andre even accidentally spills wine on Julia, causing her to run out while panicking. Sarah follows her quickly, wanting to make sure that everything is under control. After dinner, Sarah and Jack meet up once again to discuss just how big of a disaster the dinner was. Sarah begins to doubt whether their parents are meant to be together, but Jack remains optimistic, insisting they give it another try. Although hesitant, Sarah ultimately agrees to the idea. The next morning, the ship docks in the beautiful city of Vienna. Jack and Sarah leave the ship early to take a quick stroll through the city. During their chat, Sarah mentions that her clients backed out of their deal, leaving her boss furious. Jack offers his sympathy and encourages her to cheer up, assuring her that better things lie ahead. Sarah nods but then shifts the conversation to her mom and their close bond. Jack quickly chimes in, stating that although he and his father don't see each other often, they still love each other a lot. The two continue chatting, sharing jokes, and laughing joyfully. Before long, they realize they have a lot in common. Later, Sarah and Jack discuss plans to have their parents meet again. However, they quickly realize that Andre and Julia are complete opposites, with vastly different interests. After some brainstorming, they decide to take their parents on a carriage ride around town after dinner. Sarah and Jack soon part ways and take both their parents shopping. They ensure that Julia and Andre pick out accessories and clothes that the other might like. Sarah takes the lead by telling Julia that Andre really likes her and wants to see her again. She even persuades her mom to buy a blue dress, knowing it's Andre's favorite color. Meanwhile, Jack also makes sure that his father doesn't mess up anything like the last time. That night, Sarah and Julia meet each other along with their parents, hoping to break the ice. Sarah urges Andre and Julia to get on the carriage. However, Julia refuses, saying she wants to attend a nearby church concert. To everyone's surprise, Andre immediately agrees and asks to join her. Julia readily accepts, and the two walk off together, excited about the concert. Sarah and Jack are shocked by the unexpected turn of events, but are ultimately happy to see their parents bonding. With no other choice, they decide to take the carriage ride themselves. While Julia and Andre enjoy the church choir, Sarah and Jack ride around the city, chatting and laughing. They purposely take their time to ensure their parents have more time to connect. During the ride, Jack opens up about his past, sharing that he had always been closer to his mom since his dad was often busy with his music career. But after his mom's passing, Jack decided to mend his relationship with his father and is now working to rebuild their bond. Sarah is touched by this, so she praises Jack for his efforts. Eventually, the two start discussing other things, which gets them even closer than before. Meanwhile, Julia and Andre head to a nearby diner after the concert, where they get to know each other better. During their conversation, Julia confides in Andre, admitting she's suspicious of Sarah's behavior. Andre laughs and says he's certain their children are trying to set them up. Julia chuckles and brushes off the idea as ridiculous. Just then, Sarah and Jack arrive at the scene to see their parents laughing together. Elated, they watch as Julia and Andre chat gleefully and joke around. At one point, Jack hands the waitress his credit card and asks her to bring Julia and Andre some dessert to help them end the night on a good note. However, when the waitress serves the dessert, Julia becomes emotional, as she used to make the same treat for her late husband. When Andre learns this, he consoles Julia by sharing stories about his own wife. This leads to a bittersweet moment as they bond over memories of their partners. The next morning, Teddy approaches Sarah while she is working and asks if everything is okay. With a solemn face, Sarah laments that her work is falling apart and that her plan to set up Julia and Andre has also proven to be futile. Hearing this, Teddy suggests she send them to a thermal spa to relax together. Sarah approves of the idea and thanks Teddy, who then asks about her relationship with Jack. Initially confused, Sarah quickly clarifies that there is nothing going on between her and Jack. Not wanting to make things awkward, she excuses herself and walks away. Later that day, Sarah sends a bottle of whiskey to Andre's room, pretending it is from Julia. Meanwhile, Jack sends a bouquet of flowers to Julia's room, pretending to be Andre. The two then meet up for a run, where they discuss their next steps. During this time, they start to grow closer and begin developing feelings for each other. A couple of hours later, Sarah and Jack return to the ship. Sarah receives a call from Patricia, who demands that she come up with another idea. Patricia even warns her that failure will lead to her being fired. Disheartened, but trying to stay calm, Sarah resolves to keep working on her plan. Soon after, Sarah and Jack go to the thermal spa, waiting for Julia and Andre to arrive. While waiting, they talk about their dreams, future goals, and deeper topics like work and aspirations. Eventually, Julia and Andre arrive at the spa. Julia is excited about the relaxation, but Andre is reluctant. After much insistence from his son, he finally agrees. All four of them head to the swimming pool, where they have a great time splashing water and joking around. Julia and Andre relax by the pool, while Sarah and Jack make the most of the moment, having fun and creating lasting memories. Shortly after, while Julia and Andre stay by the pool, Sarah and Jack prepare to leave. As they walk away, Andre confides in Julia, saying he is certain their children are trying to set them up. Julia agrees, mentioning that she never expected Sarah to go to such lengths. Together, they piece together that the whiskey and flowers sent to their rooms were from Sarah and Jack. Realizing the depth of the situation, Julia decides to come clean and tells Andre that she is just not ready to start dating yet. Andre admits he feels the same and adds that Sarah and Jack seem to be falling for each other instead. Julia agrees, pointing out that the two probably haven't even realized it yet. In a surprising turn of events, Julia and Andre decide to team up to set Sarah and Jack up instead. Back at the cruise lobby, Sarah and Jack continue chatting. Sarah tells Jack that the only reason Julia's career didn't take off was because of her responsibilities to their family. With a sigh, she expresses guilt for her mother's sacrifice. Jack reassures her, saying that Julia probably loved taking care of her family, and encourages Sarah not to overthink it. The next day, the four of them go on a palace tour. Awestruck by the beauty of the place, they happily explore and admire the decor. Julia and Andre settle near a piano to enjoy the melody, while Sarah and Jack head off to get drinks. Both believe they are working to set their parents up, not realizing that they themselves are being set up. After the tour, Jack offers to walk Sarah to her room. During their walk, Sarah mentions that it's Andre's birthday tomorrow, and that he has booked a private tour of the National Library to celebrate. Jack then asks Sarah if she and Julia would like to join them. Sarah happily agrees, and the two share a sweet moment. Before parting, Jack thanks Sarah for making the cruise truly memorable for him, bids her good night, and walks away. The next morning, Sarah prepares for her daily run. Just as she's about to leave the ship, Teddy approaches her and invites her to the captain's table for dinner that evening to celebrate Andre's birthday. Sarah readily agrees. A couple of hours later, Sarah, Jack, Julia, and Andre head to the National Library for the private tour. They explore the place, admiring the vast collection of books, while Andre enthusiastically shares his knowledge about European history. At one point, Julia and Andre excuse themselves, hinting that they want to spend some alone time together. This leaves Jack and Sarah by themselves, excited that their plan to set their parents up might actually be working. However, they fail to realize that they're the ones who are growing closer with time. Towards the end of the tour, all four of them snap a photo together and walk away. That evening, everyone gathers in the captain's chamber for dinner. The captain begins the event by wishing Andre a very happy birthday. Everyone raises their glasses in celebration, then starts chatting and enjoying the meal. To mark the occasion, Sarah plays the piano while Julia sings her favorite Broadway songs. The group thoroughly enjoys the performance, cheering for Julia and showering her with compliments. The following morning, Sarah and Jack visit a famous winery. They sip wine while discussing their journey so far. Later, they venture into the wine cellar, where Sarah is captivated by the massive barrels of wine. Excitedly, she asks Jack to take a picture of her. Jack agrees but notices some dirt on her face. Without hesitation, he wipes it off, a small gesture that makes Sarah realize her growing feelings for him. Meanwhile, Julia and Andre, also at the winery, discuss Julia's upcoming Broadway revival show. Andre asks if she's ready for her comeback, and Julia claims she is. However, she also admits she's nervous. That's when Andre reassures her that she'll do great. He even shares his own experiences as a singer in his band to cheer her up. Eventually, they talk about the time with their partners and reminisce about old memories. After the winery tour, Sarah and Julia go shopping. Julia teasingly points out Sarah's increasing closeness with Jack, but Sarah counters with the same observation about Julia and Andre. Julia laughs and clarifies that she and Andre are just friends. She also reveals that they're aware of Jack and Sarah's plan to set them up. Finally, Julia comments on the undeniable chemistry between Sarah and Jack, insisting they should be a couple. Sarah denies it, claiming they're just friends, but Julia refuses to believe her. Changing the subject, Sarah asks Julia if she ever felt held back in her career because of her family. Julia confidently replies that she never did, sharing that she's always been happy with her life and has no regrets. Relieved, Sarah finally stops blaming herself. After shopping, Julia returns to the ship to rest, while Sarah meets up with Jack to attend a cake tasting event. There, they playfully steal bites of each other's cake, sharing laughs and enjoying their time together. Later, the two return to the ship and find Julia and Andre chatting gleefully. Approaching them, Sarah and Jack ask if they're having a good time. Andre replies that they are, but he also notices Sarah and Jack's playful flirting. Smiling to himself, he starts thinking of ways to help them realize their feelings for each other. Finally, the ship docks in Budapest, so the captain encourages all the passengers to take a tour of the grand city. Sarah decides to get some work done and heads to a nearby cafe where she sips on her coffee. Jack joins her soon after and asks what's going on. Sarah explains that she has finally found a client that Patricia might be interested in. She shares that the client owns boutique hotels with a music theme all across Europe, and, with a gleeful look, adds that this potential client hasn't partnered with a tour company yet. Excitedly, she mentions her plan to meet him and secure the deal. Jack nods in approval and wishes her the best before leaving, explaining that he has breakfast plans with Andre. In the meantime, Sarah meets with her client to discuss the details of their partnership. The meeting goes exceptionally well, so she returns to the ship shortly after, beaming with excitement. As soon as she steps on board, Teddy approaches her and informs her that Jack has been waiting for her in the lounge. Teddy then tells Sarah that Jack really likes her, and that the two of them fit together like puzzle pieces. Sarah, however, denies this, insisting that they are just friends. Moments later, Sarah changes into a beautiful dress and goes to the lounge to meet Jack. Once there, Jack asks if she would like to go out with him for dinner. Sarah excitedly agrees, eager to see where their time together might lead. Shortly after, they head to a beautiful restaurant for dinner. They sip on wine and talk about their parents. Eventually, Jack reveals that he arranged the dinner to create a special memory for the two of them. Sarah nods in agreement and shares the news that she successfully landed the deal with her client. She adds that Patricia is thrilled, as this might soon lead to her promotion. Jack is elated to hear the news and wishes her all the best. Gathering his courage, Jack finally confesses his feelings for Sarah. With a deep sigh, he tells her that he really likes her and wants them to be more than friends. Unfortunately, Sarah gently refuses, explaining that she has a lot she wants to achieve in life and isn't ready to settle down yet. She adds that she wants to reach the peak of her career before pursuing anything romantic. The next morning, Sarah wakes up to find a note from Julia, saying she has gone to Heroes Square to think. Worried, Sarah goes to the square and finds Julia sitting alone, clearly anxious. Sarah asks her what happened, and Julia admits that she is incredibly nervous about the Broadway revival, confessing that she doesn't know if she can perform anymore. Thankfully, Sarah stays by her side, reassuring her that she will do great. Eventually, Julia asks Sarah if things are okay between her and Jack. Sarah replies that they aren't, and shares the details of their dinner. Hearing this, Julia sighs and encourages Sarah to give Jack a chance, insisting that they're great together and deserve a chance at happiness. Later that day, the Broadway revival finally begins, and Sarah eagerly heads backstage to wish her mom Julia good luck. Jack and Andre arrive shortly after to offer their encouragement as well. Assuring Julia that she'll do an amazing job, they all leave, excited for the show. Despite their supportive words, Julia feels anxious and worries she'll mess up on stage. Sensing her anxiety, Jack reassures her and adds that his final wish before the cruise ends is to see her sing on stage. Touched by his words, Julia takes a deep breath and agrees. As the revival starts, the audience bursts into applause. Julia steps onto the stage, greets everyone warmly, and shares that she'll be singing her favorite love song. With one last deep breath, she begins to sing. Her stunning performance mesmerizes the audience, moving Sarah and Jack to tears. When the performance ends, the crowd erupts into a standing ovation. Julia feels a wave of happiness and relief as the cheers fill the theater. Sarah rushes to congratulate her on the incredible performance. Later, Sarah looks for Jack, only to discover he left the show early to clear his mind at the ship. Realizing how much she wants to take a chance with him, Sarah hurries out of the theater. Just as she's about to leave, Jack appears. Surprised, she asks why he's there. That's when Jack confesses that he wants a future with her. Overwhelmed, Sarah responds that she wants the same. Inspired by the moment, Sarah announces her decision to take control of her life and start her own company. Jack, thrilled by the news, congratulates her and kisses her passionately, excited to begin their journey together. The movie finally ends with Julia and Andre continuing their close friendship, while Jack and Sarah explore Budapest one last time, laughing, chatting, and sharing joyful kisses.